veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Welcome into Mackie and Judd. Sans Phil today. He is taking one last pre-football vacation. So once he's done, hey, there he is, my Sid Hartman bobblehead that I always use. For those of you who watch us on YouTube, thank you. That, of course, is a guy who's bordering on deserving his own bobblehead very soon. That's right, our guy Doogie, because it's a Reckless Speculation Thursday, and we're about to get into the meat grinder of the scoops. Declan Goff, executive producer, as always, and I don't know why he's wearing a nice shirt, but he is, and makes me look bad and makes Doogie look bad. And why? You don't need to do that.
I have to be the looks on this show. That's how this works.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, heck, I am very hard on the eyes. Any suggestion of somebody needing to make some sort of likeness of me in bobblehead form is moronic, is idiotic.
You deserve a bobblehead. You're very close to bobblehead status. Jack of all trades, been around forever.
I don't even know if my wife would buy said bobblehead.
I would though, and I put it right by my Sid one. See, that's the key there. All right, so it is Reckless Speculation Thursday. Phil back on Monday, but that does not stop us from at times, Dukes, recklessly speculating, but at times also very logically and solidly and through your scoops, speculating on things that might happen. Let's start with this one. So when the Wolves and Simmons were tied together early on after the Sixers went out in the playoffs, there was a ton of talk about would Ben come to the Timberwolves, that I think reported that the Wolves were definitely interested, that there was going to be a back and forth. On the Zach Lowe ESPN podcast, he put out there within the last day or so that the Spurs, the Warriors, and the Wolves are in on Ben Simmons to what he called varying degrees of interest. As we know, Dukes, often in cases like this, what will happen is we'll talk about it and the public will a lot. If it's a big name, it'll go sort of quiet. So like it'll be quiet for a while. And then after that, it will come back and pop back up. And that's ordinarily when the reality of it possibly getting done exists. So despite the fact that this has gone underground and quiet for a while, what can you tell us about where things stand on the Ben Simmons trade front and the potential that the Wolves are still actually very much involved?
I mean, maybe publicly it's gone underground to some degree, but with the entire league in Las Vegas, I can promise you, executives are talking about Ben Simmons, his future right now. They are. Now, heck, I told you a few weeks ago, Judd, I thought he would be traded by the night of the draft. I have been proven wrong on that. I still firmly believe, based on multiple league people, that he's going somewhere eventually. It's when, not if. Now, could this thing potentially drag into the season because Philadelphia now has its eyes squarely on Damian Lillard? So Philadelphia in the last week and a half hired one of Lillard's guys, a guy that he worked with at Weber State, a guy that's been his skills coach the last few years, a guy with the first name of Phil. I forget his last name. It begins with a B. It doesn't matter what his name is, but he is now on Philadelphia's payroll. Read between those lines. Now, Damian Lillard, Zach Lowe was on this. I certainly have not heard of him making a firm trade demand, but there are league people who think that day is eventually coming, that Damian Lillard will go to Portland management and say, okay, enough is enough. It's time to move me. So does Philadelphia then hold on to the pretty good trade chip of Ben Simmons with 4 years left on his contract and, look at it and say, okay, we can offer Portland Ben, Tyrese Maxey, a really good young player, by the way, and a future first, multiple future firsts. That's our pathway to acquiring Lillard. So like I wouldn't necessarily rule out, at least in Philadelphia's mind, potentially pursuing that angle. So, maybe Ben starts the year with the Sixers. But I'm telling you, Jed, like I think a trade is coming. Yeah, I mean, it was termed to me weeks ago, the word was used badly, that the Wolves, quote, badly want Ben Simmons. I continue to hear unless something changes, Daryl Morey doesn't have interest in who the Wolves are willing to offer. Daryl Morey is not interested in Malik Beasley, in Jarrett Culver, in Josh Okogie, in Jake Layman, and Juancho Hernan-Gomez. He's just not. Sure, he's got interest in Anthony Edwards. The Wolves are not moving Anthony Edwards for Ben Simmons. So until Morey budges, Rosas isn't budging on the Ant stance, nor should he. So unless Morey budges, unless you can find that third team, I don't see how Ben Simmons lands here. I can also add, Judd, you listed a few teams there. Sacramento. Sacramento is still trying to do some things. They have Buddy Hield. They have Bagley. They would have to toss in multiple firsts. But Sacramento's another team with no interest in Ben Simmons.
So Gerson doesn't strike me as the type of guy who is essentially told no and disappears. It's like, oh, too bad. Okay, bye-bye. He strikes me as the type of guy who probably tries to find a way at least a second or third time, Dukes, to make a trade work. That being said, do you think that the path, and we've talked about this going back to the origination of this discussion about Ben, do you think that the path for a three-team trade remains alive? Because Gerson has a lot of smart people. He's a smart guy. So I guess if it has to be a three-team trade, do you think behind the scenes, fairly quietly right now, that's what he at least is looking to work? Because to your point, he knows that the Sixers look at the assets he's offering and basically say, no, thank you.
Yeah, I think he's been working that actually going back weeks, Judd. Like, I still look at Portland and say, what direction are they going? Like, if they move Lillard, do they really want Ben Simmons, or would they completely hit the reset button? Would it make sense for Portland to acquire a bunch of future firsts and a bunch of expiring contracts? They can always get off the CJ McCollum contract if they want to. He still holds incredible value. So, like, if you're Portland, do you take the OKC route, accumulate all these draft picks, hit rock bottom for a few years? There's some really good draft prospects the next 2 years, including, if you really want to look far out, the 2023 draft, the 7-3 player from France. He looks like he's going to be the best draft prospect in a number of years. And you're not guaranteed anything, right? With the way the lottery is now set up, you can be the worst team in the league, and you're far from guaranteed even a top 3 pick. So like that's a slippery slope. But even like a Chet Holmgren, like Chet is considered a high-level draft prospect next year. Maybe not a lock to be number one, but I'm just saying, if you're Portland, you're probably having some of those internal conversations. But like, I still don't think, like, if you're Portland, okay, even with expiring contracts, Hernan-Gomez, that's a team option for that third year. So you could look at Hernan-Gomez and say expiring contract this next year. Jarrett Culver isn't guaranteed beyond the year. Jake Layman, expiring contract. But still, like, how many firsts would it take for Portland to do such a thing? And I still think Portland is going to try to do more to make this thing work with Damian Lillard. Like, you can argue if you wanted to, with all due respect to Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter, all those guys, that Damian Lillard is the best player in Trail Blazers history. Like, why would you move off of him, especially when he hasn't, come to you and said, hey, get me the bleep out of here? So, like, I think we're a far way away from that happening. But make no mistake, like, the Wolves still would love Ben Simmons, but there is not a logical path. There just isn't, Judd. Like, seriously, soundly, logically speaking, like, find me the path, even involving a third team. Like, I've tried. I've attempted to concoct. I've played with Sachin Gupta's trade machine on ESPN.com. It's really hard to formulate a logical trade where Ben Simmons lands here.
Doogie, when you're looking to, Zach Lowe put out the just yesterday on winners and losers of trade of the NBA free agency and whatnot, and taking away, obviously, the Trailblazers, who Lowe even notes that they probably are the favorite, and they're waiting that out to try to figure out how that trade can work between Ben Simmons, the Sixers, and Portland. But he also mentioned the Warriors, Spurs, and Timberwolves have discussed Simmons with varying degree of interest, sources have told him. If you were to rank Warriors, Spurs, and Wolves as the most likelihood of landing Ben Simmons, which of those three teams would you think has the best path to get him?
Probably Golden State, right? With James Wiseman on the table, with Moses Moody on the table, maybe Jordan Poole. Like, Golden State's got some good young guys. Now, they would have to send some money out. So what's Wiggins got left on his contract, Declan? Is it a couple years? It's definitely more than one. Like, if you're Philadelphia, you probably don't want the Andrew Wiggins contract, but it's not like Wiggins was a train wreck last year, so maybe Philadelphia could talk themselves into such a scenario. But, like, they need shooting. They need some perimeter help. You know, they made the mistake of moving off some other guys, although the acquisition of Seth Curry was dynamic. Actually, Dallas is the team that made the mistake, you know, making the move for Josh Richardson. That was actually a shrewd move by Daryl Morey. But, like, you think about the way Houston played all those years, like, Philadelphia probably can't have enough perimeter shooting. But I guess you can make a case that Wiggins could fit in there. San Antonio, like, they took the Florida State kid in the lottery last year, but he hasn't shown much. They have Trey Jones. You know, would they move off Murray, the young point guard? Maybe. I don't know. I don't see all the pieces that San Antonio has that would be uber appealing to Philadelphia. So if you're asking me to rank those three with Anthony Edwards off the table, I still think, like, if it came down to it, as much as the Wolves love Jaden McDaniels, and I think Jaden McDaniels is going to be here next year, I do. But, like, if it came down to it, would the Wolves move Jaden McDaniels to land Ben Simmons? I think they would. But that being said, if I had to rank the likelihood of those three, Declan, to answer your question, I would go Warriors 1, maybe the Wolves 2 with McDaniels in a package, multiple future firsts. Then maybe put the Spurs 3, but you can maybe make a case for the Spurs being 2. But nonetheless, Golden State for sure number 1 of those three teams.
This other piece of reckless speculation from Zach Lowe.
Reckless speculation.
He says, regardless, the Wolves should have eyes on Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, that's easy for me to say.
Well, Golden State, right? Golden State should have eyes on Karl-Anthony Towns, yeah.
That's easy for me to say. Towns is not available and may not be for a while or even ever. But Curry is 33. Talent is talent. If it is the fit, even if the fit, is imperfect. I know you threw out maybe, what was it, like almost a year ago or last fall, that league executives said that Towns was basically going to eventually be out of Minnesota, paraphrasing there a little bit. What about the idea if this Wolves team, again, just doesn't hit its ceiling, they're significantly under 500, even around the trade deadline or by the end of the next NBA season, what's the likelihood that Karl-Anthony Towns does say, all right, I want out of Minnesota and I want to change the scenery?
I mean, never say never, but Declan, he has not gotten to that point. He wants to make this work. You know, I think his words ring true when he has said for many years, going back to when Flip Saunders took a chance on him, when Flip was leaning for a while, the Jahlil Okafor route, eventually settled on Cat, weeks before the draft. But at one point, Flip was all about Jahlil Okafor. So I think Cat feels indebted to Flip, that he wants to make it work here in the worst way. He's also heard, the rumbles for years that in 6 years he's made the playoffs once, and he made the playoffs because of Jimmy Butler. Mm-hmm. And he's got that stigma to deal with, that he hears all that. Yeah, there are league people who think, like I'm saying, eventually Ben Simmons gets traded, that it's going to come to that point that Cat is going to ask out. But I can just tell you right now, as we sit here on August 12th, 2021, Cat has not gone to the Wolves. In fact, he's told them the opposite, that he's happy right now. He really likes the direction things are going. He's in phenomenal shape. Now, maybe too good a shape. He's darn skinny right now. Is the idea for him to be chasing around a lot of stretch power forwards? Is he going to be chasing guys around the perimeter? He looks incredibly fit right now, maybe too fit. He might need some bulk, defending some of those 5 men if he's going to end up defending 5 men. And he's got flexibility. He can guard 4s and 5s to some extent.
And Duke's trade, and if you trade Cat, it's been talked about, and I get that. But if the plan is to add talent to this team and to make some type of run, which in the Wolves world would probably be just a consistent playoff team at this point, Trading Cat to me seems to be blowing up the entire thing because Ant and Cat, I think, are the future plan at least. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to work for sure, and we have certainly seen that happen. But I gotta think that in Gerson's mind, with Chris Finch coaching this team, that the plan is your building blocks are Ant for sure, Cat for sure, D'Lo, I think. I'm not positive, but I think. And after that, if you can supplement in with a really good player, that's awesome. That's great. But I would think that trading Cat or considering it right now would almost be another nuclear option of sorts, and that you are just convinced that Ant is so good, this can just be his team. So I guess what I'm saying is the idea of trading Karl-Anthony Towns right now doesn't seem to me, it's fun to talk about, but it doesn't seem to me to be a real plausible one in the world of Gerson Rosas and what he's trying to do as this team transitions from the Taylor group to the A-Rod Laurie group.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's no plausible scenario in Gerson Rosas' mind that entails him moving Karl-Anthony Towns. Gerson Rosas, for lack of a better way of saying it, Judd, is married to Karl-Anthony Towns. Mm-hmm. And what you said about D'Angelo Russell, I mean, Chris Finch went down to Louisville a few weeks ago, hung out with D'Angelo. I mean, the way the Wolves have been operating, it absolutely involves D'Angelo. Now, we can debate whether that's a smart decision or not, but I can just tell you, yeah, I mean, they want to make this thing work with D'Angelo Russell, with Anthony Edwards, with Karl-Anthony Towns. You know, hopefully those guys can sustain health, sustain playing, being on the court, being available, you know, and seeing this thing through. I do know, though, Judd, a couple league people who say, you know what, if you're the Wolves, like, look at the West, it's not slowing down. Like, can they even be a top 10 team? Like, why not get the world right now for Cat? You can always get off the D'Lo contract, too, if you want. Now, I don't think there's much of a trade market for him. Like I can tell you, Philadelphia doesn't have interest in D'Angelo Russell, but you can probably trade him. Like, I don't think that contract is untradeable, put it that way. Now, maybe you would have to attach a protected future first, whatever. But if you needed to trade D'Angelo Russell, you could. That some league people say, yeah, like, build this thing around Ant, build this thing around Jaden McDaniels, you know, hit rock bottom again for the next year or two, accumulate more draft assets, and, you know, make a serious run in, 2 to 3 years. Don't think that you're going to be able to make a big leap, this next year, or maybe even after the season, 2 years from now. But that's not the Wolves' mindset. Like, they fully expect to make a sizable leap this upcoming season. I'll also add, I mean, Zach Lowe suggesting, Golden State. Like, and I've brought this up before, but I'll reiterate it. Now, this was more the Donnie Nelson Dallas regime, but, like, Dallas has had its eyes on Cat for a while. They would love to have Cat with Luka. Phoenix, before they made the run and DeAndre Ayton really popped, like, I think Phoenix, had their eyes on Cat with the idea of Cat being with his buddy Devin Booker, but then Ayton just, he blew up in the postseason. Really, the whole season. He had a really good year. But, at this point, if you're Phoenix, you're not moving off DeAndre Ayton. But those would be two. I mean, his former agent is running the New York Knicks, Leon Rose. And I'm sure some people were like, Tibbs doesn't want Cat. Tibbs would be okay coaching Cat. He would. He absolutely would. And the Knicks have all sorts of assets to go all in on. What's that?
Would Cat be okay playing for Tibbs, though, is my question.
I think he would be okay playing in the New York market. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, with his guy Leon, the big boss. Yeah, I think he would. And, I'll be curious to see, like, the Knicks have accumulated assets, right? Mitchell Robinson, RJ Barrett. They've got some guys. Kevin Knox maybe hasn't, reached full potential or even 75% potential, but, they have some intriguing pieces. They still have at least, one future first-round pick from the Porzingis trade, if not, multiple. So, New York at some point wants to position itself to go all in, acquire some star. So it'll be interesting. But, like, you can go up and down the roster of many teams that haven't done much the last couple of years and say, keep an eye on that guy, that situation, like Zion Williamson, right? Keep an eye on that situation in New Orleans. Bradley Beal, even though he's never said anything publicly to suggest this,
like
people
Dame.
still like to talk about that. Bradley Beal, Washington. It's the intrigue of the league. It's what makes this league, unique in many ways compared to the other big three sports, NHL, NFL, Major League Baseball, with all this big player movement. James Harden, last year, forcing his way out of Houston. It's just, we're waiting for the next big domino to fall. Who will it be? Will it be Lillard? Will it be Simmons? Will it be the two of them in the same transaction? Do you even count Ben Simmons as a superstar? But like those are conversations. I promise you, Jed, those are conversations a lot of people right now. Maybe it's more media driven with so many media out in Vegas, but like these are conversations being had right now at Summer League.